I'm back again to show you the finished Wonky Courthouse Steps quilt that I have made. And I showed you in the last two videos how to make these squares. Here is the back side of the finished quilt showing the sashing at the back. It was a lot of fun to make it, and it took some time. If you want a refresher, just review Bits and Pieces and Wonky Courthouse Steps Quilt As You Go videos. But here's a refresher as well. I'm going to show you how I have joined the long strips of quilted blocks. Take them off the wall one at a time. They are quite heavy because there's a lot of fabric in them. And I lay it down on the tabletop, taking the sashing that is on the back side, right side of the blue sashing to the back side of the quilt. That piece of fabric stays on the back, and I sew it directly onto the edge of the quilted piece. On the front side, I have my 2 1/4 inch strip of white fabric I'm using for the sashing. It is folded in half and pressed, and so the raw edges of the white sashing goes to the edge as well. So all of those layers have to be attached together. The white one on the front that is folded in half, the quilted piece, and then the backing piece. When I have sewn them together, I always check to make sure that the seam allowances are even and that no extra batting or things have folded over, just to make sure everything is intact. Then I can go on to the next step. I bring over the next section of the quilt to be added to the original piece. And I look at them to make sure that they're in the correct order, and then I just kind of tuck that new strip underneath what I have already quilted, because now I have to sew that strip of blue sashing that's on the back to the back side of the new strip that I'm adding to the quilt. It takes a bit of time because it is a bit heavy and it is long. I find that my long table with all of the cutting boards removed is quite nice because then I can lay it out flat and I can use a few pins to hold all those layers together. I take my time matching up the sashing strips on the back side so that they form a perfect grid when I look at the back after it's sewn. Using the grid helps to keep from stretching anything, or then that would get it out of alignment. So you have to be careful that your 16.5-inch blocks are evenly spaced. Don't stretch them, don't pull them. It is easy enough to do. I just put a pin at the beginning of each of those sashing strips, and that helps me just to keep it all uniform and laying flat. Takes a few minutes, but it's easy to do. When I take it to the sewing machine, I just line up the raw edge of the blue sashing strip to the back side of the previous strip of quilted blocks. And I take my time, keeping the majority of the heavy weight to my left-hand side. It goes over the tray table and just slides across the cutting table that I have there. And I can keep things aligned and keep the edges even. That's very important because you want the seam allowances to meet up in the middle when you do the next step. So I just take my time. It looks like I'm going fast here, but it's really an easy thing to do. If I keep the quilt sort of on my lap, it doesn't get caught on the tray table as it is proceeding up and over the stitching mechanism. There's really not a lot of thought going into this. It just has to be something that you can manage. If you find that it's heavy to lift, put on some of those quilting gloves. That'll help with the grip. When I get to the end of the row, I just look at it a little bit to make sure that I've caught all the edges in place, and then it's time to do the next row of stitching. Sometimes you can see my hand there underneath. I hold the underside of the quilt, and that helps me to lift it a little easier and helps me to be able to manage the heavy weight of the quilt. It's you don't have to hold everything the same way, but if you vary the places where you hold it, sometimes it makes it a little easier for you to manage the weight. When you get to the end of the row, just straighten out the part from underneath to the top, and now you can see how I am folding that flap of white fabric over the seam allowances. So now I just pull the quilt back through the sewing machine, and you see there's going to be 16 inches of the quilt on the sewing machine now, and I can fold some of it over and get it out of my way so it's not going to be too bulky. Now it's just a matter of sewing that flap down. I could do that by hand stitching if I wanted to, but I usually just put 2 rows of machine stitching. The 1 row that I'm sewing right now is what holds it in place. The 2nd row I add just for decoration. It doesn't need to be there, but I put 2 rows. It's like a flat-filled seam that way. And then that's done. I'm basically got the quilt put together. So I hope this video has shown you in detail how to stitch Quilt As You Go long strips together. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, and it just takes a bit of time to make sure that things are in the right orientation, and secondly, make sure that you are not hurting yourself by the weight of the quilt or trying to pull it too hard that it might injure your back or hurt your hands. It just takes a bit of skill to make sure that you are happy with the resulting product. And it certainly is my very favorite thing to do when I'm trying to make a quilt, because I can manage this quite easily with my hands and my back. Getting older is sometimes a bit more strenuous when you try to do some of these things, but I think it's a lot of fun and I really enjoy the process. So I hope you enjoyed this and got some benefit from this video. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. I always enjoy seeing people recognizing the fact that they have learned something or achieved something as a result of something I've put onto a video. Now that it's finished, all I need to do really is add the binding, and this quilt is finished. When I was doing the process of getting ready for the trunk show that I did last week, I found a picture of a courthouse steps that I did, I think in 2013. It was a scrappy quilt as well. It was not Quilt As You Go, but it was an interesting quilt, and I'll put a little picture of it on here just to show you what it looks like. I haven't ventured all that far from what I used to do, but I enjoyed making this one. and I hope you enjoyed this video.